So thank you for being here. And I wanted to, I'm not sure how this is all going to come together, but I wanted to follow some breadcrumbs that Seisin put out for us during New Year's session in her talk on the 30th of December. And then Choa picked up a couple of weeks ago when I was here. I wasn't here for the talk last week, but he picked up on the breadcrumbs actually that had been put out by Maizumi Roshi for us. And I just kind of wanted to continue with that. So for those of us who are here or not here, I'll just remind you that Seisin was talking about how she was going through this file of just going through her stuff. And she had a file that was like, I think it was something like pithy teachings, something along those lines. And she found this piece of paper that Maizumi Roshi had given her, which is very sweet to see it in his handwriting. She had sent it to some of us. And just as a reminder, it's entitled The Three Principles of Buddhism. And that came down through Koryu Roshi. And the first one is Maha Prajna Paramita is the primary meaning of Buddhism. And then Choa talked about this in his talk, contemplate it deeply from the bottom of your mind. And you know, in Japanese, the heart, shin is heart mind. So together. And then the second one was, so the first one, Maha Prajna Paramita is the primary meaning of Buddhism. Contemplate it deeply from the bottom of your mind. And we encounter Maha Prajna Paramita in the Heart Sutra, the Heart of the Teachings Sutra. And then two, the three studies of the precepts, samadhi, and wisdom are the key to attaining the Buddha way. And then again, maintain it diligently from the bottom of your mind. Precepts, so the sila, the sort of ethical guidelines, samadhi, deep settling, concentration, and wisdom. And three, the four vast vows are our original vows. Practice them reverently from the bottom of your mind. Reverently. It's kind of a beautiful word, you know, in terms of the kind of respect that emanates from the word reverently. So these were breadcrumbs from Maizumi Roshi personally given to Seisin on this piece of paper in his own handwriting. And it moved me to want to share with you two things that Maizumi Roshi said to me. And so kind of following in the same way, he said, I always want you to remember self-fulfilled samadhi and undivided mind. Self-fulfilled samadhi and undivided mind. And I always want you to remember these. And I kind of, well, of course, looked into it and thought about it a lot this week in preparation for wanting to share that with you all. And I wanted to share with you a kind of little experience I had. This YouTube clip came up on my feed, and it was a guy named Eric Daishin McCabe, who is with the Zen Fields Sangha in the Midwest somewhere. I can't remember exactly where, but they're in Katagiri Roshi's lineage. And it was like just over 3 minutes. And there were two things that I wanted to share with you that really had an effect on me, because of course, why would I tell you about it if it didn't have an effect on me? Which were, he talked about, well, the title of it what is shikantaza? And the literal translation, as best as I understand it, of shikantaza is just hit sit. And So this all relates with self-fulfilled samadhi and undivided mind. And so he talked about most of us, maybe some of you, but most of us have not had the experience of going up into an airplane if you're going to parachute off. And he talked about, going up in the plane and you're finally sitting on the edge, sitting on the threshold, and you jump. And I don't know about you, but when I heard him say that, I just had this visceral feeling of the unknown, this visceral feeling of letting go. And so I'll kind of mention something about that later, but I'll just let that set for a moment as best as we can to all kind of envision that. And what is the relevance of that in the very immediacy of the inside, so to speak, of our own momentary practice? And let's say formally in Zazen for right now. Over the threshold. And then the other thing that he said, which really, I listened to it twice, and this made more of an impression on me the second time than it did the first time, which was, he said, because this is totally what Dogen talks about. He said, what if we, rather than putting the outcome of what we think we're looking for in our practice out into the future, what if we assume the outcome right now? And what I hear that to be is Dogen's practice realization. What if instead of whatever aspiration we have for our practice, instead of it putting it out into the future, we really have confidence that it's fully present right now? And just really appreciated that. So this self-fulfilled samadhi, from my research of this week, it is talked about in Bendoa, which is the first thing that Dogen Zenji wrote when he came back from China to Japan. And in 1231, so 4 years after returning from China, he wrote Bendoa. And in Bendoa, that self-fulfilled samadhi that Maizumi Roshi talked to me about is translated from Jiju Zanmai, which is self-receiving and using samadhi. Self-receiving and using samadhi. And he says in Bendoa, sitting upright in Zazen is the authentic gate to freeing yourself in the unconfined realm of this samadhi, this self-fulfilled samadhi. So it sounds really grandiose and everything, and then it's like, it's just right here. Self-fulfilled, not needing anything to confirm that from the outside or acquire something else. So not the same as self-satisfied, like I have something special. But when we think about being fulfilled, like it's done, it's taken as yes. I had the experience, this just coming to mind right now, being super, I know Choa knows this story, but being just so frustrated in Sesshin many years ago up at Zen Mountain Center, to where I was like laying across this rock, crying my eyes out. And for some reason, I think I had to bring something to Roshi's room or something, and I was still upset. And he's like, Kyoshin, what's the matter? And I'm like, I don't know anything. I don't get anything. And he's like, you're fine. You're just fine. And I took it at the time as like patting a little kid on the head, saying, it's okay. You have a limited capacity, but you're doing fine. And that's not at all what he was saying. There's nothing from the outside that we need to acquire. And we are wholly responsible for our own fulfillment, self-fulfilled samadhi, but not in the way of self-esteem or making ourselves feel better about ourselves. It's just, so this is the next thing I wanted to mention that came up for me is, so I'm trying to put these sort of puzzle pieces together. So starting from what Roshi had shared with Seisen and Seisen shared with us, and then it kind of, it's not that I had forgotten, but it made me recall what Roshi had said to me. I always want you to remember undivided mind and self-fulfilled samadhi. And we've often in our sitting group talked about this phrase, take the backward step that turns your own light inward. And I actually was confused for a while if that was something the Buddha said or Dogen, but as best as I understand, it's from Dogen and it's in the Fukan Zazengi. So I wanted to read that to you, that part. And for those of us who aren't totally familiar with the Fukan Zazengi, so this is another writing of Dogen's, separate from the Shobogenzo, so not his whole compendium of essays, but this is before that. Fukan Zazengi, universally recommended instructions for Zazen. This is the translation anyway, here. This is our translation, it's from the Sweetwater website. Therefore, put aside the intellectual practice of investigating words and chasing phrases, and learn to take the backward step that turns the light and shines it inward. Body and mind of themselves will drop away, and your original face will be manifest. If you want such a thing, get to work on such a thing immediately. This is an interesting translation. So these things all feel very linked to me. And I'm using my brain and my mind, so it's coming out kind of linear. But the taking the backward step. So that's what we do when we practice. We take the backward step and shine our light inward, so to speak. And body and mind of themselves will drop away, and your original face will be manifest. So I kind of looked at self-fulfilled samadhi and undivided mind for a long time. I would say, confess to say, probably up until this week when I really started looking into it more as like relative and absolute. So self-fulfilled samadhi, I take the backward step that it turns my own light inward, and I discover undivided mind, which is body and mind of themselves will drop away and your original face will be manifest. And it just has, and I'd be happy to hear other people's perspectives. It just was striking me the more I kind of felt into it is undivided mind is what we discover when we're really practicing self-fulfilled samadhi. That is our original face. That is nowhere else but right here, right now, as this. And in sense, the practice is over and over and over again, taking that backward step that turns our own light in. And that is something we do, that is something that that is action that we do. It's just amazing how kind of we hear the same things over and over again. And in some ways, it's so simple and so profound and so challenging still. But the thread, that's why maybe breadcrumbs isn't quite even the right word. I'm not sure. It seemed just kind of cute, I guess. But the thread is always there. And to think about it, coming from 1231 right to us, and it's the same thing. Kind of wanted to share with you also just this. I've shared that our sitting group, and some of us are present. Thank you very much. Has been reading this book, Enlightenment is an Accident: Ancient Wisdoms and Simple Practices to Make You Accident Prone by Tim Burkett. And so there he has this little section about taking the backward step that we're actually reading for this coming week. He's talking about I'll just read this whole little bit leading up to it. Even though volitional activity stops, that doesn't mean that nothing happens. Each time we allow our awareness to sink deeply inward, we touch some place we have never touched before. And once touched, the route has been marked, much like a synaptic pathway in our brain. Only this pathway is toward our interbeing, our undivided self. So I'm going to say undivided self, undivided mind. In this deep place, there is no sense of separate self, and therefore no assumptions and no foreground. So I would pause it, close it. Is that how you say that? That no sense of separate self and self-fulfilling samadhi are the same thing. So what is this self that gets fulfilled? And is that the deep, profound, untalkable about undivided mind? And even interbeing feels like it can sound a little bit, so it feels a little bit like a dualistic term. But the actual profundity of really seeing ourselves as undivided. And the understanding, experience, sometimes just confidence in the fact, and Cezanne has said this many times, the fact of us being whole and complete as we are. And over and over and over again, on a practical practice level, we just keep taking that backward step. And just see what's here. think that's all I want to say for now. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for Choa for bringing this forward a couple weeks ago. Thank you to Seisen for sharing with us the words that she discovered, and deep and enduring gratitude to Maizumi Roshi for bringing our lineage to this country and birthing this practice that we all so appreciate.